Yeah, I like to make those because I think that people need, we like our rituals. That's in our DNA, regardless of where you're from in this universe. Regardless of where you're from, your family, your relatives all had their old rituals. And so I think reconnecting with those old ways and having some ceremonial tools, actually a box of ceremonial tools that you just use to pray with sometimes. You don't have to call it prayer. You can call it whatever you want. Meditation, just sit and be quiet sometimes with it. And I really think that's how Bob Marley wrote a lot of his songs, you know. I mean, he didn't write all those songs all by himself. He had the medicine enhancing his sensitivity and his consciousness and his awareness. I feel like they wrote those songs together.
Yes. And you've also said that Bob Marley's songs are prayers, and that these prayers, every time his song is played all over the world, that these prayers are being released and given up. And he really has made an impact in our world with this spirit of the medicine being his assistant. You, my dear, have assisted many, and you bring goodness to the world in so many ways, including your efforts regarding the Native workplace. You were talking a little bit about this before the break, but what is Native Workplace, and what does this company do to assist tribes and tribal members?
Well, I created Native Workplace about 15 years ago, when there just was no place online for Native people to look for work in our own community. And as more Native papers came online and had their classifieds up, we shifted from that to Green Jobs. When Green Jobs first came out, no one knew what it was either. They knew it was Green Jobs, but what does that mean? So we launched an effort to educate our community on the variety of green jobs that were available, not just wind and solar, but we've done a lot of work in energy auditing training, rain catchment system installations and certifications, all these kind of sustainable living things that can translate into work. But we also tied it to our traditional values, just to give the work more importance to people, so that if you are a sun dancer, you can work with the sun in solar, or if you pour water for ceremony, you can work with water to keep our water clean. So I'm always trying to make that traditional connection. It's also, now here we are again with cannabis and the Cole memo that came out that have the 8 guidelines that tribes can follow and grow cannabis, but it's still a slippery slope. And our community needs education, not just on what kind of business we can engage in, but just the plant and the medicine. A lot of Native people are still very much against cannabis. And so that's a little bit of an uphill road. It's not viewed as, quote unquote, our medicine. It's viewed as a medicine from someplace else. And it's also been lumped in our community, in our wellness situations. You know, when people are sick and their spirit is sick, they're going to take anything they can get their hands on, really. So in the mind of the community, cannabis is lumped in with everything else, alcohol, meth, cocaine, and we have a lot of education that has to happen in our community to change that tide.
And there's just a lot of tension, isn't there, between initially the federal government finally saying that they're going to allow the Native American tribes to be involved, and then on the other hand, a lot of uncertainty and confusion about it, so that now it's more of a promise than the reality. The reality is that we're still having to fight with the federal authorities and sometimes even the state authorities to allow the Native Americans to have this beautiful plant.
Yes, it's true. And, you know, when that memo first came out, the red flag to me was the Department of Justice was saying tribes can do this as long as they remain compliant. Well, what does that mean? That is a very big word, compliance, as we're just seeing in the mainstream cannabis industry with the wide range of issues we're having with pesticides and production and, you know, having a standardized compliance. So one raid that took place, happened for a variety of reasons. They didn't have a BIA-recognized tribal council. They didn't have an ordinance. 40 greenhouses with no patient manifest. I mean, we do still have to be smart about what we're doing and try and be compliant at least. Federal Indian law is a very complicated area of law. Very complicated.
Fortunately, we'll all be together, as Nurse Heather will mention, next little bit later in October, when we'll be all together at a conference to address some of these issues. Because the good news is that there's a brighter day ahead, and with education about the subject, hopefully then we'll be able to allow the Native tribes and around the country to be able to do this.
Absolutely. Kenny, I love talking about the native lands and growing cannabis and hemp. That's something that I absolutely love. But we've also got to go show a little love to our sponsors. You want to take us to the break?
Absolutely. We are having a great time with our beautiful guest today, Kristalla Allen. This is Good News with Cannabis Nurse Heather. I'm Canna Kenny, and we're going to say hello to some sponsors and be right back with our final segment.
Good News with Nurse Heather will return, but first, let's show some love to our sponsors.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled Kaercher. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. Kaercher spells out their full-service insurance services, ranging from commercial to bonds to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's Kaercher Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Nurse Heather is back to spread some more good news, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, beautiful listeners. This is Good News with Cannabis Nurse Heather and our very special guest, the cannabis Kunindera, Kristalla Allen. And just before the break, we were talking about a conference that is coming. Tell us a little bit more, Nurse Heather, about that, and then we'll have our beautiful guest tell us some more.
Oh, yes, Kristalla. You and I have had the opportunity to see each other, and Kenny as well, to see each other speak at different conferences and events. But we have never really been together on a panel, and this is going to change on October 12th. I'm really excited that we are all involved in the National Cannabis Summit being held in Denver. Can you share some of the details? I know you've been involved about this conference with all of our Good News listeners.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited about this conference, and I'm just even just to hang out with you guys for the weekend is going to be great. But It's really the first national cannabis conference that has included a full tribal track. And that is a big, no one's done that yet to this date. What's been happening is, some of these conferences have, one or two people that are working with tribes and pardon me. So it's really important for us to have a full, robust tribal track. One of the main things that we're doing that's really putting this in a different place is, for the very first time, we have a panel for Red Crow Cannabis, which is a native-owned cannabis company, and with several tribal deals. And for the first time, we have actual tribal council chairpersons coming out publicly to speak about their projects and what they've done and how they've gotten things moving. It's really still touchy. A lot of tribes are still kind of nervous about even going to a cannabis summit. And so we're really grateful to Red Crow Cannabis. I'm very grateful to MJ Conferences for even asking us to do this full tribal track. And, education, I think it's education all the way around, not just for tribal members, but also for people that want to learn about how to engage with Indian country and what we're looking for and what we're trying to do.
This is a very magical morning, I must tell you, Cristala, because just as we started our program, several large crows have landed just outside our studio. I'm just wondering if there's some spiritual significance to that. I'm not crow, I'm clan, but you might want to put out a couple shiny things for them. Crows like shiny things, they come around the shiny. So you guys are putting off a little shiny over there, and you're drawing them in. That's interesting. You've got some elders coming around listening to us. Of course, this big full moon we just had is still very, very strong, and a lot of spiritual stuff swirling around. So
we've got lots of crow medicine going on today. It's wonderful. Magical Madam Mota. You have been a spiritual boost for all of us today, and all of our listeners will feel this as well. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your beauty, and your vision with all of us. Do you have any final words of wisdom to leave with our listeners?
I would just say that there are millions of people who look at this plant from it has touched them spiritually. They want to connect with it more deeply. What I would say would be go out and sit with your medicine for a little bit. Just have a little bit of it, and then see what happens. And then see what happens.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, you guys, for inviting me. It was very sweet of you.
I was wondering, Nurse Heather, because Cristala had mentioned about the roots going back to Sicily, and I just was wondering in my own mind if Don Corleone had had a little bit of cannabis, maybe there would be a few less people sleeping with the fishes.
Well, she says it works for anger and sadness, so indeed. Oh, Kenny, I don't know about you, but my spirit is feeling juiced. Between the super blood moon and these messages of healing from Cristala, I'm ready to go out in the world and create some magic of my own.
That's right, Nurse Heather. And the thing about Nurse Heather is that she's trained as a registered nurse and was very accomplished in that area. And yet, Nurse Heather, you learn so much from the Hispanic healers and from the Native American healers. And I think that was almost the subject for another show.
It's all well-rounded, indeed. Thank you, beautiful listeners, for being with us. We'll see you next time.
This is Canna Kenny, and Good News with Cannabis Nurse Heather. We enjoyed having our very spiritual special guest, Cristala Allen, Madam Mota, as she's sometimes referred to. Nurse Heather, this has been another wonderful show. We look forward to seeing our beautiful listeners and sponsors for our next one. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Good News with Nurse Heather. You can download past episodes of our program by going to cannabisradio.com or subscribing to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Also, you can follow the show on Facebook and Google+. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without proper consent of CannabisRadio.com is prohibited.
Maui Wowie.